All right, next item on the agenda, 8D, consider a report regarding the Memorial City Hall renovation project and consider approval to authorize city staff to negotiate and/or execute contracts related to the Memorial City Hall renovation project or take other action as required. Ms. Agner.
To get this information that we're providing you tonight. While it's being passed out, I want to tell you that a month ago when we told y'all that it would take us about a month to review and try to value engineer on this project, we were right on target because we were doing this as late as this afternoon. So I do understand that this is a lot of information for us to try to put on you tonight. I want to, after we go through some of this, to give y'all a couple of options as to how we can proceed with this. We also have our architects here tonight, John and Becky Flowers, that after I go over this cost information, they have some information that they want to share with y'all about the project cost and opportunity for further reductions if that's a way that you want to go. We had 32 work elements on this project that were spec'd and that we requested proposals on. So this sheet that has 3 pages on it lists those various work elements, and the cost that you see there is the value engineered cost. Not necessarily the proposal, but if we saw that there were areas that we could potentially save some dollars, we have included those. So the various elements are contained on that sheet, and at the bottom of the last page, you see that the total value engineered price is 2.7, $2,741,000. On the other sheet that we passed out, am I not? Okay. It's cutting out. On the other sheet, I basically have summarized the cost as we anticipate them. First of all, the work elements that I just mentioned, the $2.7 million. Jack Redmond and the construction superintendent have also estimated the remaining work that we'll be doing as the owner of the project with our crew, and that cost is provided there as well in the amount of $277,000. There were some items that needed to be addressed that were not in the original specs. That is theater seating, which we have obtained a price on that of just under $75,000. We needed to have a wheelchair lift. We provided the cost for that. There was some exterior lighting and a handicap ramp that we need to provide for. And then we also built in a contingency of $250,000. That brought the remaining cost of the project to $3.374. I've provided the funding that we have available that remains from the bond. That's $1,194,000. We also have a commitment from the museum to reimburse us $39,000 for their portion of their space, and based on the estimates that we've seen, that does not cover the full amount of the cost. We're off by, probably in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $60,000. But they did make that. Yes.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
With the funding available, and then the museum reimbursement, should that have been subtracted or added?
I subtracted from the way that we did this report was I took the total cost, which came up to the 3.3, and then I subtracted the funding available and what we anticipate receiving the commitment from the museum to come down to the 2.1 that is additional funding that we need. Okay? This, I want to say right now, as I say $2.1 million, this involves fully renovating the facility at a level that basically takes nothing away from the overall function. It's everything that we wanted the building to be. That entails working with the various committees, meeting with the colleges and universities to see what they wanted, what they needed from their departments. Flyaway systems, really, really wonderful sound and lighting and all of that. All of that is in this dollar amount. So while we did value engineer, we didn't value engineer in an attempt to reduce the function or the quality of the facility, okay? We value engineered, and Jack and John and Becky can probably address the specifics of those if you want to know what those were going forward. I came down to the 2.1, and I knew that, the funding is a concern and how much y'all would be willing to consider committing for us to be able to complete this project at this level. I wanted to be reasonable in, some things that I thought we could accomplish. One thing that we've done over the past 2 years is we've established that capital outlay line item that's in our budget, the $200,000 annually. That has been dedicated in 2016 and in 2017 to honor the $400,000 commitment on the animal shelter. I think one reasonable option, or something that y'all could consider if you were agreeable to, would be to dedicate that 2018 funding to this project, as a means to help us complete it without having to borrow money to do that. We also we've looked at numerous fundraising opportunities. I didn't want to provide any estimate of something that I thought would be unreasonable or unattainable. So we really backed off on what we think we can do, and I put another $200,000 there. So to finish the project with everything fully functional, no noticeable or perceived decline in the quality of the product, we would be looking at probably estimating 1.74 additional dollars needed. I did reach out today. I called our bond counsel consultants to see, what we would be looking at, because I know we've mentioned many times the possibility of having satisfied the convention center debt and without putting any additional burden on the hotel occupancy tax fund to basically just replace that convention center payment with this Memorial City Hall payment, if y'all were so inclined to let us proceed with the project that way. He did get back with me this afternoon, and we could do a certificate of obligation for the 1.75 with payments ranging over a 15-year payment of, I believe, $142,000 to $147,000. So that's an option available.
Talking about financing options, the bonds that we have currently on Memorial City Hall project, when do those come due? When are we paid off?
2025.
2025. So we've got approximately 7 years left on those bonds. When do they become callable?
19.
2019. So we can call the bonds in 2019. Now, do you think, because I don't want to get in a situation where we pull a bunch of money out of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and because I know this is kind of freeing up some dollars that we've always talked about that would be injected back into CVB. If we went down the path that we're going to commit an additional $1.7 million. Now, do you think within our bond council we could have an option, I guess, of two possibilities? Either first, going down this path, issuing COs, and then in 2019 running a callable and taking, because we owe about 1.2 now, so on the current bonds that are there, which would drop that under $1 million and take that outstanding principal of $900,000 or whatever it'll be in 2019, lump it in with the 1.7 that we're looking at as a difference, and then extend that over a 15 or 20 year note so that we can get our annual cash flow kind of back in line with where we're at now. So really almost refinancing the current bonds that we have and tacking on the additional 1.7 that we're looking and just extending it out additional 15 or 20 years.
Well, one thing that would come to my mind immediately on that would be, I don't know if the new issue, if we'd have a period of time where they would.
Become callable as well?
Yes, exactly.
Now, do you
So-
think there would be an opportunity, or if we didn't go down that path and we couldn't go down that path, I know with some of our revenue bonds and some of the other bonds that we have going on within our budget, we have kind of a rolling pattern where we pay interest on those bonds until other bonds open up, and then we start paying principal and interest. Where, because if we're only looking at the current bonds going out 7 years, it's not a whole long time. And I guess as a commission, I want to look at this project as is not a 10-year project, it's not a 15-year project. I mean, this is something for our kids, for our grandchildren, their children, and so I think we've got to look at it dimensionally out there and say, if we have to get into debt for 20 or 25 years to keep those payments where we need it to be able to finish this project appropriately, what our options are.
I can have an opportunity over the next, week or so to present various scenarios, talk to him about various options. Like I said, today, I was just trying to see if I could basically come to y'all tonight with something to where I could say we wouldn't draw any further against those funds with the financing. But yes, I think there are other options. One thing, that we could possibly look at would be for the next 5 or 6 years or so, doing a smaller principal reduction, some principal, paying all the interest, which would maybe free up a little bit more if you wanted to put it into tourism dollars and then raise those payments at the end. So there are various alternatives that we can work with, but as to the specifics, I would need some more time and need to have a more extended conversation. And we'll be happy to do that going forward.
Because I know personally, I know personally, and I think most of us on this commission want to do this building right, and I figure if we either need to do it right or we don't need to do it, because I think that if we go down the path of cutting out in this building and cutting back and not finishing sections, I feel like this building, it'll be another generation before it ever gets done. And I think there's a manner that we can get it done. I mean, to me, 1.7 million is a scary number. I think all of us on the commission, after looking over the course of the last year or two of this going on, figured this day was going to come where we were going to have a number. Honestly, I feel a lot better than I thought I was going to feel on it, because I thought the number was going to be a lot larger.
We do too.
But I'll tell you personally, I think that this is way too much information overload at this point to try to make a decision. I think we've got to look at all of our funding options. We've got to look at what we can do.
Well, if I could just say, first of all, I have John and Becky here tonight, and I'd like for one or both of them to come up and to speak to. I think one thing that you touched on was the value and how nobody likes to see the additional funding requirement, but I think that they'll be able to speak to the fact of what we're really getting for our dollars. I think that you would like to hear that. I think also, and John can speak to the original, when we first started this project back in 2010, as to what the cost came in at that point. And I think for it to be 7 years later, we're faring fairly well. So if we'd give him an opportunity to make a few points that he would like to, then I've got a few, kind of a limited number of options, because I do know that this is a lot of information, and to ask y'all to make a decision like this is a little too much to expect in an evening. So I'd like to lay out a couple of alternatives.
And one time, and while we're thinking about all the different options, one thing I guess when you're looking at it, I would prefer to look down a path that doesn't take anything out of the general fund. I mean, I know you've allocated some money out of capital outlay, but to me, the general fund is for us to do the projects that we need to do within the city.
You want me to increase that another?
I think that we need, to me, this is a long life building. I think that it needs to be funded through hot funds. I don't want to strip money out of hot funds and pull it away the CVB, so I want to figure out a way to get it funded and get it, put together in a debt package, if that's the path that we're going to go down as a commission. I don't want to take it out of the general fund, personally.
I have a question. I see here where we have, you have listed here, commitment of the 2018 capital outlay. is there any funds in our present capital outlay that we could use for this project? There's,
That 200,000 line item that we have was dedicated last year and set aside
16
to
to
go
17.
into the animal shelter, and the
Right.
17 amount is, so all I have is that 200. As far as what we have stipulated for capital outlay. If it's okay with y'all now, would it be fine for John to come forward and present his information, and then I can kind of tell you our options for
Works with
proceeding?
me. Mr. Flowers?
I'd say we can continue. They can probably hear you.
So do I need to wait till the other commissioners get back? Okay. Oh, can I say one thing? And since the Mayor Pro Tem's not near the gavel, can I say one thing real quick about the animal shelter? Todd will say that's probably illegal. Can I do that? About the, since the gentleman. Okay. That's his job, okay.
Which one is it?
Huh?
Which one is it?
Okay. I met with, I guess, Lisa and Jack, I don't know how many hours this week already, a lot. It was probably 3 yesterday. I don't have, they didn't ask me to say anything, but I just thought I was given an opportunity here for a few minutes to give my opinion about things. Okay, so this is just my opinion. Let's just start with the first one. Yeah. Let's see here. We're not going through all these. We're going through about 5 or 6, I think. Does that pull it up? Well, that's not it. It's not in order, Jack. Did you switch them? Do I go back here? Okay, well, let's see. Let's see if this is one. Okay. Then does it zoom in and move now? Okay, I'm figuring out how this works. This is not going to take very long. Like I said, we're only going to go through about 6 or 7 little photographs here. I think Lisa has said, we've been working on this 7 years. I think Jack said, no, I've been working on it 10 years. I started on March 5th, 2004, 13 years, 1 month ago, okay? This is when I was raising money through a grant that we received to start studying the building. Now, since that time, there's been other architects work on this that went broke and out of business, and now I'm back here for some reason. So we've been at this a very long time, and my hats are off to y'all because y'all are the commissioner that finally got this done, okay? And so I'm proud of what's been done over the past year and a half. We've done more than took place, I think, in the 12 and a half years before that. These are out of order. I'm trying to get some information. Okay. Your computer's different than mine. I wanted to, I looked at today, approximately 4 o'clock, and you can just download this off of Google. I looked at what do other auditoriums like this that were recently renovated cost. Not brand new auditoriums, just recently renovated. This is the Robinson Auditorium in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's finished about 4 or 5 months ago. That's the cost. It has. So, I'm just showing you what popped up. And it has 2,214 seats. It costs $31,842 per seat. That's in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm going to keep going. There's about 3 here. This one came up, and I just picked the first few. I didn't go looking for the most expensive ones or anything. This is at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. It's a renovation. It's 600 seats. This is a printout off the internet. The handwriting is mine. That's what it costs. That's the total cost of the project. It costs $389 per gross square foot, completed. It was just recently completed. The design started in 2011, so that took a while to design that one. That is a renovation project. which came to $24,416 per fixed seat in the auditorium. Okay? Now, this one is almost just like yours. I found this one on the internet today. This is Danville, Virginia. The building was built in 1932. Your building was built in 1929. They've put some city offices in the building that they're having to rip out and put it back as an auditorium. It was originally an auditorium. If you read this data on this page, some of the sentences they told their architect was exactly what I was told by your city staff. It's unbelievable how alike these two are. Let me see if I can go to the next sheet of that. And if you read this, and I'll give everybody a copy of this, this is, and they have this discussion, there's 1,400 seats. And then if you read that real close, it says we're cutting it down to 800 or 900 because people are a lot bigger than they used to be. And I think that was said to me on this deal by the late Bill Marshall. But it's going to be 800 to 900 seats, and that cost is between $15,000 and $13,333 per seat. And that one is the same age, being renovated at the same time, under the same conditions. Okay? Now, I'm just about through here with this little study. That's just quoting that it doesn't have a parking lot. They're going to park all over the place. Okay? I think that's more of the same. I'm trying to get through this quickly. Now, this is your building. If the building final cost is $3,300,000, because this is the data I had at the time that's been updated in the last few hours, and it's 552 fixed seats in the building when we're completed, then your cost per seat is $5,978. Not $31,000, not $26,000, not $15,000. And the cost per square foot of gross building area is $122.29, not $400, not $500. I guess what I'm trying to say, without babbling any longer, this is a bargain compared to other auditorium renovations. And I'll show you a couple of other things here real quick. This was an email to Mr. Jack Redmond, let's see, and Frank Johnson. This is part of the public record from one of the last architects. This email is dated April 2011. He estimated the cost of Memorial City Hall renovation at $3,326,515. That was 6 years ago. I have those drawings. Becky, a good architect, and my boss, says that's about 30% of what we currently have designed. That didn't have a flyway. It couldn't lift sets. You couldn't have plays in it. It had two speakers on two sticks. It had some lights standing on a tripod that people in the balcony could push on. It didn't have an events room. It didn't have a kitchen. It did have a couple of dressing rooms. It didn't have a museum in the building. It didn't have catwalks. It didn't have theatrical lighting. It didn't have sound systems. And that was the cost, before inflation of 6 years ago, that was the cost right there. Again, I'm trying to point out that when I look at this, it appears that this building is a bargain. This is from the state of Texas today. This is from the Higher Education Coordinating Board of the state of Texas. I don't even know what a couple of these words mean, but if you look in this category, it says repair and renovation average cost per square foot today plus one standard deviation. I don't know what that means, but there's some people in the room that probably can explain it that I can't. But an auditorium or a theater on a university campus in Texas today to repair and renovate costs $500 a square foot. Okay? You're spending, if you build everything, $122 per square foot.
So what you're saying is really, we've put together a plan 6 years later, got 40% more building than we had 6 years ago, and got under the dollar number that they gave us 6 years ago when they came up with something.
Yeah. Now, let me just make, I guess, two other comments, and Mr. Redmond and Ms. Agner need to correct me. I'm a little concerned about the bid bonding process. Do you want me to try to explain that, Ms. Agner, or would you like to explain that, or?
Well, if I could just maybe hit, because I told y'all that, we had a couple of options because we know this is a lot to put on you this evening. But in talking with John and Becky today, there are some time constraints that we're operating under. One is that the bid bonds, when we went out for bid, they had 40 days. They were good for 40 days. That 40 days expires Monday at 2:30. I did not feel like y'all would be ready tonight. I felt like it was a lot to ask, to say, do you want us to proceed, do you not? So what we talked about today, and he'll go into more detail as to what that means, what are our options. One of the options would be if you felt like between now and Monday, say at 11:30, y'all would have enough time to feel comfortable with saying, we want to go ahead with this full renovation as outlined. We don't want you to go down the path of basically starting to affect the quality or the function of the building. We're okay with the 1.7 proceed. Then John had indicated that we could possibly issue a letter of intent, get that out by 2:30 and still be covered. The other option that we had talked about was if you didn't feel that Monday at 11:30 was adequate time, the possibility of us beginning the process now to reach out to the contractors, because we did on some of these elements got some really good prices that we certainly would not want to, we won't take advantage of if we can. But if you don't feel that you'd be ready to make that decision by Monday, then I think the next appropriate course would be to start reaching out to the contractors and see if they would extend their proposed price for a certain number of days. So let John go from there.
And this is more Todd's field, but let me just tell you in general that if
Excuse me,
anybody...
Mr. Flowers.
Yes.
Because I'm sort of confused right now, because I thought we were just getting a report of the status. I didn't think we were having to consider anything today. Am I misunderstanding something right now?
The way that it's on the thing is we consider report regarding Memorial City Hall renovation and then potentially authorize city staff to execute contracts or some other direction. So I think we're trying to figure out what that other direction
We put
possibility
that-
is.
We put that on there, posted for a report and possible action. At the point in time that we posted on Monday, I was hoping that maybe we could get some information prior, but we were working on it this morning, so we don't have that. So now what we're trying to address is, what is the best way to give y'all time to be comfortable with what you're doing and us work within the constraints that we have based on the timing of where our meetings fall compared to, the requirements of the big bonds and all that. So Ron can speak.
Just real quick, bid bonds. In the state of Texas, anytime we bid anything over $100,000, is that right, Mr. Redmond? That we have to get a bid bond of 5% of the amount of money of the bid. That bid bond is good for 40 days on this project, okay, which would be Monday at 2:30. Now, what happens if no decision's made if to build a building or not by Monday at 2:30? Some of the bid bonds are from bonding companies. They're not cash. And those bid bonds would expire. And let me give you an example. Looking at this chart, we have the low electrical bid is $291,300. So their bid bond's approximately $15,000 that I think is in Mr. Fitt's office right now. Maybe in Vet's office. But anyway, we have those bonds. It expires Monday, I think, legally, and Todd can explain that better than I can. So what happens is we lose that money if we don't give them at least a letter of intent saying we plan to build this building and plan to use you. Now, what could happen either direction? And what could happen is Tuesday they could call me and go, we got another big job, so we're not going to do that anymore, and there's nothing we can legally do. We can't keep their $15,000 anymore. So then the second low bidder is $398,500, so it costs us $107,000. Okay? I'm not trying to pressure anybody into making a quick decision. I have not called people, as I agreed with Ms. Agner today. I'm going to call people in the morning probably, because they're probably going to know, hey, is this building going to get built? These low bidders that we've been negotiating very hard with, and I will ask them at that time, if y'all instruct me to, how long are you willing to hold that bid? Just as simple a question as that, without raising. See, on Tuesday, and that's just one example, and we could go through every example on here, but on Tuesday that person could attempt to raise that bid, and we would reject the bids or go to the second bidder or rebid. Okay? Because, as Mr. Fitz will tell you, they're not able to just randomly raise their bid later when the bid bond expires. Would you agree with that, Mr. Fitz? Because that just wouldn't be fair. So anyway, I just wanted to report that to you. And I wanted to say a few other words maybe before we leave, but is that what you wanted me to talk about there, Lisa?
I have one quick question on the bid bond thing that we're talking about. You had said issue a letter of intent. I mean, if we issue a letter of intent to these specific vendors and we decide that we're not going to go down the path of doing this building, I mean, does that legally hold us liable to pay them? I mean, so if we say, okay, right now we're in the process of figuring out how we're going to potentially put this thing together and fund it. We know we've got certain bidders that we want to utilize. If we send them a letter of intent to, hey, we plan on using you if we build this building, we like your bid, does that force us into a position where if for some reason we don't go down the path to finish the building, that we're legally liable to them to pay the contract or what their bid price?
This is what I mean, this is my impression from what we've been talking about. I think if you're going the route of a letter of intent, then you're basically giving your commitment that that's your plan to go forward, and it's something that they would look to the city to honor. So if you're not ready at 11:30 on Monday to move forward and to say we're committed to 1.7, or we're willing to go out and get this financing for whatever dollar amount that is and to proceed, then I think the more appropriate course would be to reach out to the contractors and see, will you honor this price for X number of days?
A week,
whatever
2
y'all
weeks,
think, 2
whatever y'all
weeks,
tell
3
me to
weeks,
say to
whatever.
them.
And that would be the more appropriate. But I think a letter of intent basically says we're intending to complete this project.
I mean,
Is there a cost to if they do have a surety, if they go say, oh, yeah, we'll do it for 30 more days, we'll extend their bond? Is there going to be
I wouldn't be
pay?
asking for an extension of the bid bond. I'd be, because I don't know if I can legally do that, I'd be asking for an extension of the time that they would honor their bid.
I mean, I think that if we were going to go down the path, in just my opinion, looking out what the next month holds, I think we would almost have to go out for a 30-day extension. And the only reason I say that is we've got election coming up here in a week, and potentially have up to 4 new commissioners on this commission. And I would hate to put them at the first meeting going into this. Okay, now, do you approve $1.7 million expenditure and go? I mean, I think that if we're going down that path of extending these contracts, we're going to have to try to extend them out 30 days. I don't, I would hate to put a potentially 4 new members of the commission in the first order of business that they have is to approve or not approve $1.7 million of additional expenditure.
Almost, I may actually disagree with you on that. We've been following this project for 2 years for those who've been here, and now a year. And we've been entrusted by the people of the city to hopefully make these decisions and just do our due diligence on these. So I don't have a problem actually with a sitting commission to make a decision on something like this. I don't feel real comfortable about the time element we have.
Yeah.
I would like a little bit more in a letter of intent, but I would like to see us, I'd like to look over all the information, make sure we do our diligence, and if we want to go ahead and move forward, but an extension would be good. But this is a project I know all of us have wanted to, have been very involved in. So I don't think we should extend it past that 30 days. If we
No,
can,
I mean, I think I think that we would have to look at a 30-day extension because the next meeting, we will potentially be swearing in 4 new city
Is
commissioners.
that the next meeting?
That's the next meeting. And so,
my
I mean, if we're going down the path of looking at that, I mean, I think you're going to have to look at doing a 30-day option just because
And
we
that
don't.
next meeting is in, what,
Second week of May.
is that, 20-something days?
So the date is May.
May
So-
the 11th.
So we could call another meeting, though, however.
If this is something, I mean,
That's
if-
what my suggestion would be, so.
If John could get them, if we could begin the phone process tomorrow and say, what is that date? If there's a date that y'all feel comfortable that falls prior to that, then we could do a special called meeting as long as he could get, and then we could be going forward saying, we need a 14-day extension or,
I think we
that's
look
up
at
to y'all.
30 and just see if we can extend out 30, and that gives us a blanket, and it gets us past everything that we've got going on, just to say, I mean, 14, we might only need 14, and we might be able to call a special called meeting, but I want to look at all of our financing options on this and get a clear picture of what all of our options are from a financing standpoint on this project before I'll feel comfortable, voting in $1.7 million of additional expenditures. I mean, that's my reserve right off the bat.
So you're even saying really looking at the project and what information we have right now, that.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the dollars that are there. I just need to figure out how, wrap my mind around how we all feel comfortable financing the remainder of this project. I
Sure.
mean,
So just to get an extension that would allow for enough time for us to really feel like we have.
I mean,
an
we've got
informed,
the
thorough
numbers
decision.
today. We've got a 3.4 million, and I think that we're getting a great building out of this project. But I think at this point, and I don't see us. I mean, I don't see going down the path and trying to cut this thing apart and not finish the project. So I think that we've got to, as a commission, now look at all of our different financing options on how we're going to pay for the remainder piece of this. And I mean, I don't know, that might be a phone call that can be had and all the options can be laid out on the table in 24 hours. I don't know, but I want to look at an option that doesn't hamstring CVB's ability to grow the tourism. I don't want to, I'd like to inject additional funds in there if we can. I know we've always talked about that with when the roll-off of the bonds related to the Civic Center. I don't want to have us all tied up in debt because I'd like to have some cash flow flowing through there. So I would like to look at all the different plausible options of financing the remainder of this project at a limited yearly cash flow or outlay.
John Martin's very responsive, so, I can start tomorrow with a phone conversation to say, mention some of these various alternatives, to ask him to come up with some, because, this was, today, basically providing him the amount. So he can provide us some options. Let me ask this.
So if you make
John,
that-
do you think if we could do a 30-day, not to exceed 30 days? Or is that too far, is that pushing too far out for people?
No, I'll request anything you say, but I may receive answers like, I will call the supplier, and if the supplier, like an electrical supply, if the price of copper goes up, that it's going up.
Right.
They can't absorb it. So they may say, the answers I'll get will be, okay, we're going to hold that bid for 30 days as long as our supplier doesn't charge us more money. And that's the answer I'd be looking for. I wouldn't be looking for,
Yeah, I mean,
if there's
That's just a risk. That
well,
we
I mean, I want to deal with
incur
this
to go
expedited, but
with
what I don't want to do is in a week coming back and find out that we don't have the answers, and then we're calling and asking again for another extension. And I think within 30 days, we can get the financing put together, or we can figure out what the financing picture is going to look like. Whatever change does or doesn't happen on the commission, we'll have that taken care of, and and I think there'll be enough people that have been familiar enough with this project to be able to move forward, but I think 30 days gives us that option.
Is that 30-day time period, is that something that we could ask and you'd feel good about? Or is that a little too far?
That's a little far, since
Okay.
we were already at the 40-day mark. Monday, that'd be a 70-day. I've never heard of one that big. Todd and I would have to look. Todd, in the Texas Government Code, I thought at bid date you couldn't extend it more than 45 days. Is that not, is that, I don't remember. Is it 45 days in the Texas Government Code? So my question is, the Texas Government Code says we cannot, as architects, make them hold their bid more than 45 days. But I don't know if that means, can I call them and ask them for a voluntary extension? Mr. Fitz, you're pretty sure the government code is 45 days? She's a lot smarter than me, so. So we need to see how that's worded before I call them, huh? Okay, sorry. But it bid, is what I'm saying.
So, Ms. Lisa, is it possible that the staff could contact these various people and come up with a plan and let the commissioners know what you have, and maybe we can have a special call meeting and to look at your findings?
What is
It work if we get the legalities
Get the
worked
legality,
out,
and I will call
then
them tomorrow.
we start the phone conversations, and if we see that a 30-day window is something that they're not agreeable to, but the majority are agreeable to 21 days or whatever that period is, then we get back in touch with y'all as soon as possible. We say, would you be available if needed?
Well,
Just tell us, I'll
and-
be here anytime you need
Okay.
me.
And then I can also begin the conversation with John Martin, our bond advisors, and start looking at different scenarios and start making y'all aware of some different options that are available that way.
Is it my understanding, what time on Monday does the bid bond expire?
Again, Mr. Fitz would have to answer that. We say 40 days from the time of bid on the front of the bid form, but I don't know if that means till 2:30 when I begin opening the bids, or if it means till midnight. I don't know the answer to that. And I didn't have time to call Todd today because, we were still negotiating.
You guys got any more
I'll
questions?
say that, I'm okay coming Monday. I'll say that for the record. I'm just saying that. I'm good.
I can't come
Okay.
after work.
I do too, but I can.
Can I give you my proxy vote?
I'm not in charge of that.
Okay,
Yeah, let's just talk and then shoot us an email and find out kind of where we're at.
please, yeah.
I think, this piece is also with the financing component, and it does have some moving parts with our hot funds, with our Convention and Visitors Bureau. And so not only are we just looking at building the building, and potentially we're tying up funds for our city for an extended period of time. So I want to do that as wisely as possible, and hopefully, we can use those hot funds and still inject a little bit of capital into the Convention and Visitors Bureau plan that we have. So I'd love to see some things like that as well.
One
That's
thing
gonna
that
take
I
some
want to
time.
say, and I understand the desire certainly do from CVB to have some additional resources to put towards things.
Your mic.
If y'all are, pretty much in agreement that we want to keep this, we don't want to strip this building down, we want it to be fully functionable for all the various performance events that we wanted it to be for, then we're going to have something right there that's going to draw people here, So, anyway, we'll proceed, given what y'all told us. We'll keep y'all aware. We'll give y'all some update tomorrow that things are going in the right direction. We'll let you know if there's any need for any kind of meeting on Monday.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey, could we also get a copy of the one letter you had of the actual 2011, that little file you had? If you can maybe send that over to the city, it'd be great. I would love to have that in my personal inbox to look at. I think those things are really important, especially when it's based on what we were going to do in the city of Marshall.
Thank you.
What the project was, and when you have something like that, and to look at the diligence of our city staff and yourself to get a project in at this price point, it's really staggeringly fascinating.
And may I say two more sentences before you throw me out? I think we valued engineered, Ms. Agnew, Mr. Redmond, Ms. Morrison, approximately $415,000 out of the job so far. Having said that, there are low bidders that have not value engineered with us, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, because they are afraid that we are going to take their ideas and negotiate with somebody else or rebid the project with their ideas, so they don't want to tell us ways they know to save money until, I'm asking them, what's it going to take? Yeah, and I said, what's it going to take? And they said, a letter of intent signed by you, John. And I'm like, well, I'd rather Lisa sign it if we but you understand there is more value engineering to do that we can't do until y'all make a decision, okay?
One other thing that I want to mention, because y'all will have more time after this meeting to look at the information that we provided you tonight. You will see on those, if we've indicated the name of a contractor, that contractor was the low bidder, and if we've given you a price, then that's what we value engineered, that's there. There are certain elements that we either did not receive bids on, a few elements that we didn't receive bids, or a few that we thought we could be much improved on, that we are going to recommend rebidding. None of those elements are critical as far as us moving forward with construction. There are things that would come up later. So if you see those, then you know, but there was a basis for the number that was provided y'all, either through cost estimates that John and Becky got, contacting other companies on the items that were not bid. Some of them are actual costs for actual items. So when you see that, I just wanted you to know, if it does not have a contractor's name, there has been a basis for that number. It's not just something we pulled out of the air, okay?
The theater seating component, I know we didn't have a bid for that initially, I don't think. Is that us installing those seats, or is that another company doing that?
That would be installed by the company that brings us seats.
Okay, so that's installed. Okay.
Yeah, that's installed cost. We have received 2 firm prices. People, it's kind of hard to explain. Theater seat people and people who make church pews don't like to show up at bids for some reason. But they have the number, and they sent us the number, and the bids ranged from $75,000 to $91,000 was the range of the prices.
Okay. Good to know.
All righty. Next item on the agenda, consider